Joe Satriani, welcome to Noise 11, and great to talk to you face to face for the first time since 1988.
Fantastic. You don't look a day older. It's amazing.
I feel 100 years older, but thank you very much. You're looking good yourself. Um,
Thank you.
the Elephants of Mars album, I'm absolutely flabbergasted. Here we are, 19 albums down the track. I think Surfing with the Alien, they've just had that second record out where we did that first record interview, and here you are all these years later. They say the 19th album. I've actually lost count. Have you been keeping count?
At one point a couple of years ago, there was a bit of a controversy on the team as to whether to call it, 15 or 16, and I think it had to do with an EP that had a studio track on it, and it confused everybody as to whether it should be called a live EP with a studio track or a studio album with some live stuff on it. In the end, it was decided that this was my 19th studio album, and I just figured I'm not going to argue with anybody. It sounds good to me.
Okay, so we're not counting Chicken Foot, we're not counting G3.
That's true. Yes, I know. Yeah, because if you count Chickenfoot, then there's two studio albums to add to that, plus the live DVD. So yeah, um, I'm lucky that the world has given me space, to release this music. That's really great. That's all I ever wanted to do was make music with my guitar. So this is really just a treat to be able to still do this right now.
I'll tell you what, the world has really given you 2 years of chaos to make this album. Was that a positive or a negative when it came to recording? Because I would imagine you've got Ray Thistle White working here, and you're dealing around the world. Suddenly, I guess we've gone from under pressure to under constraint. How did you handle the constraint?
Yeah, well, the worst thing ever to happen to us as a planet, to deal with a pandemic. So there's no really good side to it. But I certainly had to, along with the rest of the guys, we had to figure out how to get better at a few things. Recording remotely being the most important. I think that when you go into these things and you get hit with these adversities, it's very much a reminder of like playing live, because you walk out on stage and you might have some plans like, I'm going to be great, I'm going to do this, I'm going to walk over there and I'll be great over there, and this is going to work. And of course none of it works. If there's one thing you could count on during a live show, is that most things go wrong and you have to learn to react like really fast. And it's all good in the end, it's all fun. But so forget about the plans. The devil listens to he who makes plans. So here we were faced with having to come up with plan B or plan C, and everybody luckily had a way around it. And we just basically worked around this awful situation because we were all suddenly, incredibly unemployed. We had the time and, to do something. And I took it as, like, no, I've got no excuse, right? If now the world is leaving me alone with my devices, then I really should do something about it, because that's my job. I'm a musician. I'm supposed to make music for people. Get busy, So I gave myself a couple of mandates. I said, write better, arrange better, play better, do everything better, and deliver a better album. How about that? While all this other stuff is going on. And there's always a way around it. Thank God for the techs that figured out how we can make a record and send files halfway around the world on the internet and get them back, and there's no fidelity lost and no information lost. And so the whole album was done remotely. Yes.
So how did the Ray Thistlewhite connection come about? Because of course we know him here well through Thirsty Merc, and I just saw Ray a couple of weeks ago live with the fabulous Caprettos,
Amazing.
a super group of old blokes.
Just amazing. I mean, it was purely by accident. I was in Los Angeles finishing up my previous album, Shapeshifting, and I was thinking, I've got to go on tour in a few months. I want to find a new keyboard player who can play guitar. And I'm asking friends, and I'm on the internet every night, just sort of looking for keyboard players. And I came across an interview where there were several new keyboard players that were mentioned and highlighted. One of them was Ray, but I thought, well, that guy looks more like a, guitar playing, pop star or something. I didn't really think much of it. And I got to the bottom of the article and there was a video for him. But I looked at it and I said, but that's a Lewis Cole video. I know Lewis Cole and his band Knower, but how come I don't recognize Ray? So I watched this video again and I'm waiting to see where's the guy with the really long hair and the beard playing the Gibson 330. I can't see him. And then I go, oh my God, that keyboard player that's shoved in the corner playing just like fantastic fusion jazz funk. That's the same guy. And as soon as I realized that, I found out who his manager was, who happened to be in LA. And I reached out and I said, you got to ask your client if he'll play with me because I really want him on this next tour. So that's how we got started. And I have to point out, I have yet to actually shake the man's hand. I've never been in the same room with him after all this time. It's been 2.5 years and I still haven't met him, except this way.
Who is Zizi Satriani, who is credited on the video for Sahara?
Yeah, Zizi is my son. He is a filmmaker out of Los Angeles. We've done a lot of projects together. His documentary, Beyond the Supernova, was probably one of the first major things we did together. People can check that out on iTunes or Amazon Prime Video or Kello, if you get Kello down there in Australia. After we did Beyond the Supernova, he started doing some other videos for us. He did the 1980 video and Yesterday's Yesterday from the Shapeshifting album. And he did the Sahara video for this album. And tomorrow you'll get to see a really crazy, his absolute craziest vision to date of a video for me for the title track, The Elephants of Mars. Yeah, we're going to debut that tomorrow noon here in Pacific time.
Fantastic. I'll be looking out for that. And I'm a big fan of breeding your own staff. I've done that myself.
Very good.
It's interesting, isn't it? When, here we are in the 21st century, they start to talk in terms of success as being the number of streams that you've had, the number of YouTube views. Once upon a time, they'd talk to us about Joe Satriani, platinum-selling artist, top 10 artist, Grammy-nominated artist. Now it's a number of streams. Do you find it quite weird that you're going and you're making an album that a lot of people will listen to, but they will never hold in their hand?
Yes, yeah. It's certainly different for anybody who's lived long enough to enjoy all the different media that comes along. So for somebody like me, I remember listening to my older siblings' 45s. There were actually 78s in my house, I think, that we never knew what they were because we didn't have anything to play them. But, we had one telephone in the house. It was a dial-up. There was nothing like cable TV. There was no video cassette or anything like that. So I've been around long enough to enjoy owning my very own 8-track cassettes of, Jimi Hendrix and Jethro Tull. I mean, that's crazy. I know that's like ancient history, but I'm really cool with it because I've seen it as a way that artists can reach me. Like if Jethro Tull can reach some young, almost teenager because he likes listening to this 8-track. Of course, Jethro Tull is going to say, yes, 8-track, I don't care, whatever. Just as long as we can reach that kid somewhere in New York who's going to fall in love with our album, And so today, what's going to be great is like today we did, we played the entire album, the ear music, showed the video on YouTube. I literally played the vinyl and just showed it and streamed it out around the world. So that means everybody around the world who was interested could listen to the album for the first time in sequence. And that was never possible in the 60s and the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s. I mean, when was it ever really that possible? And it's so important that an artist like myself in this little subgenre of instrumental rock guitar can have instant access to a possible fan everywhere in the world at the same time. That is remarkable. So I don't mind the streaming thing. Musicians always want to get paid more. Doesn't matter if we're playing in a club or playing at a wedding or Madison Square Garden, or we're being streamed, we need money. So please pay us more. But besides that, streaming and the internet is a way for us to have a world audience at once. And that is good. There's nothing bad about that.
Yeah, this amazing collection of instrumental albums. One of the fun facts about Joe Satriani, you once sang backing vocals on a Crowded House album?
Yes. I mean, you can't dream that stuff up. That stuff just happens. So how? Well, there was a producer, a musician named Mitchell Froome, and he was interested in this band I was in called the Squares back in the 80s in the San Francisco Bay Area. He passed on us because we weren't good enough, and he was right. But he did remember that the lead vocalist and myself had an unusual way of singing together. And when he was in Los Angeles producing the album for Crowded House, he remembered that it would be cool to bring in this unknown vocal group to come in to back up the real singers in Crowded House. And my range was very much like the drummer's range. And so we did a lot of singing together on 6 songs. And my lead vocalist, Andy Milton, who had a beautiful voice, sang basically with Neil. And yeah, we're on all the hits. I mean, that was really great. It's 2 days of work. That's the only time, here's trivia. It's the only time that Joe Satriani was ever paid to sing. That was the beginning and the end of my career as a vocalist.
Let's talk about another high-profile thing, and I know you probably can't say too much about it, Satriani versus Coldplay, which was settled for an undisclosed amount. You probably can't talk about the amount of money. So on a scale of Hyundai to Ferrari, what sort of car was it?
The only thing I can say is no comment, but I can say that with a smile.
Well, I take it the smile is at the Ferrari end. The episode of American Dad, that must have been exciting. When you know you're going to be on a show like that, do you make it a point to sit down in front of the TV and get the drinks, get the snacks, and watch yourself on such a cult show?
I had no idea. It passed me by, to tell you the truth. I didn't know about it until people started to email me about it and say that it was happening. So yeah, I missed the moment. But I was what was I on? Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That I think was more exciting for me. I don't know if you get that animated show, but that show, I always loved that show. And yeah, Chickenfoot was in one show. We were one episode. I think something like Mike gets visited by an alien and gets cloned, and something like that. We have to save the day. Something like that.
There were those 2 Chickenfoot albums, 1 and 3. Was that a nod to Traveling Wilburys?
I don't think so. I think when we were working on what was the second album, there were many ideas about how to be silly with the title. And I don't know why 3 wound up being the number, because I think 7 was a big contender there for a while. But I think Sammy's got this thing about the number 3, and so he probably was the one that finally said, "Oh, please let's make it 3." And I didn't care one way or the other. So I just thought I really just loved what Todd was working up for the artwork. He had this beautiful 3D thing going, and so I thought, well, whatever number, I know it's going to look great.
Yeah. Coincidental purely that Traveling Wilburys had a 1 and 3, and they were a super group as well.
Yes, well, maybe somebody knew that. It was like went right over my head at the time. I remember the day that it was decided, because nobody told me that they were going to be shooting in 3D that particular day. So I showed up at the studio really wanting to get some work done, which is really hard with Sammy Hagar, Chad Smith, and Mike Anthony. They are 3 of the most, happy-go-lucky party guys ever. And here I am, serious musician. So I show up like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, it's going to be so much fun. All we're going to do is get shot in 3D. And I was thinking, but what about the album? We got a couple of songs we were supposed to record. And so all the shots of me that day that wind up in that package, I don't look like a happy guitar player at all. And it's because I wasn't. And I was just like, could you get that camera out of my face? Because we literally were recording the album while these guys were inches from our faces with these 3D cameras. It was very disruptive.
I recall you being a very happy guitar player the very first time I saw you as a guitarist for Mick Jagger on that 1988 Australian tour. That must have been incredible, because I recall the set list was like 17 out of 21 of the songs were Stones tracks as opposed to solo tracks. So, you know, you're up there actually performing the music of the Rolling Stones with Mick Jagger. That must have been an incredible experience.
Really great. Really, wow. I mean, talk about jumping on a giant wave and going for a great ride. I mean, that was really great. You know, Mick gave everybody all the space they needed to be themselves. So, you know, that was really a plus. Like, I think everyone was acting almost like a guest soloist in a way, except for maybe Jimmy Rip. I think Jimmy really wanted to be a little bit more like Keith, and I think Mick kind of depended on him in that way. He was like the anchor, you know. He got a lot of flack for it, but Jimmy actually did a really great job in the band and as a focus, and allowed us to kind of do whatever we wanted to do, you know. Because Simon, you know, he didn't play like Charlie Watts, and Doug Wimbish didn't play like any of the Stones bass players. So I certainly didn't play, you know, like any of the many guest soloists and second guitar players in the Stones. So, but yeah, I mean, we got to play all the greatest Stones songs, minus a few that I really thought we should have played, but they were like, I think Mick and Keith had decided there were some songs that were off limits to each of them as solo artists, that they would always save it as special songs for just the Rolling Stones, you know, which I thought was really cool that they would have that agreement. But I had a great time. It was my first time in Australia, and yeah, it was wonderful, just wonderful.
And you got to do that secret show at the Corner Hotel in Melbourne when you were here.
Yeah, that was crazy. That's great. I was so happy that Mick decided to do that, and yeah, it went by so fast. I mean, my memory of it is mixed with the chaos of trying to technically get in there, play on another band's equipment, and get out. It was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, the new Joe Satriani album is The Elephants of Mars. We've just had a Grammy Award, so we're not going to have another Grammy Awards until 2023. I'm hoping this album breaks the drought. 14 nominations, no wins. I reckon we're going to get a Joe Satriani Grammy Award in 2023.
Oh, wow. Well, some people may think you jinx it like that, but you know, the way I look at it is that it's better to get nominated, because that way you don't feel bad when you win and your friends lose. Because generally you're in the category with your friends, basically it, you know. I mean, that's what it is. You're in a category that is a style of music, and so that means that you've probably toured or hung out or partied with these people. And so, yeah, it's always kind of awkward when you turn to your friend and you go, yeah, we're both up for the same award. I wonder who's going to win. So, but if you get nominated, at least, you know, well, they're listening. There's 8,000 members of NARAS. Not that your career depends on it at all. It's just a nice little icing on the cake, I guess.
Well, all the best of luck with that in 2023. Joe, a pleasure to talk to you. I hope that we get to see you back down in Australia soon. And thank you for joining us at Noise 11.
Thank you very much.